Good afternoon, folks. This is John Pettipas on the afternoon of Wednesday, the 8th day of July, 2020. And right now, it's almost 20 minutes before 2. So how's that? 2020. And I'm doing a recording today. I want to give you a little introduction. I'm going to speak on Nova Scotia, my beloved province, Nova Scotia, our beloved province of Nova Scotia, and beautiful, wonderful Cape Breton Island. I'm doing this video not to piss people off, hopefully, but rather to steer a conversation on the future of our province of Nova Scotia. I love Nova Scotia dearly. If I didn't love Nova Scotia so much, I'd be United States. I truly and sincerely love Nova Scotia. That's why I've been here for 60 years now. Okay, good Lord will, if the Lord grants me, I'll be here another 60 years. Anyhow, today's video is on the future of our province, Nova Scotia, and our present Premier, Steve McNeil. So yes, I'm going to take the bull by the horns. Okay, we're going to talk provincial politics. Federally, I've actually voted first 2 times in my life when I was 18 years old for Alan J. McCacken. It was the first time I was old enough to vote. First time actually was Honourable Bill Gillis, and long-serving wonderful MLA for Antigonish County for 28 years. And he ran at 67, didn't succeed, but tried again in 70, got the nomination. Won in 70, 74, 78, 81, 84, 88, and 93. In 1998, retired after 28 years of extremely exceptional service as a statesman. He was not a politician. He was more than a politician. He was a statesman. He served every day the people of Antigonish County and indeed his province. Wonderful, wonderful gentleman. I've always voted for Bill Gillis, and I've always voted provincially Liberal. Now, federally from the story, I voted for Alan J. God would send me to hell if I didn't vote for the coal miner's son from Inverness that rose to the second highest office in the land as Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance at the very end. He was Minister of External Affairs, Minister, when I was a kid, he was a Minister of Labour, and I think Labour and Health. He was a very capable cat anyway, extremely capable cat. I voted for him twice because the government fell and they had election in 79. I voted for him again. It was his last 2 elections. And I voted for Roger Cuzner. Okay, Roger Cuzner's riding. Only in his last election was I able to vote for Roger, because before that, Auld, Cove, Antigonish County was not part of his riding. I kept taking the riding and making it bigger and bigger. So anyway, and I was delighted, honored to vote for Roger, and if I could have voted for him again, I would have, but he chose not to run again. He's a fantastic gentleman. Anybody didn't vote for Roger, well, I don't know what. Forget about the Trudeau guy. Roger, as a man, as a human being, as a great Cape Breton, a great Nova Scotian, you just can't beat Roger. Anyway, back to the thing. In Nova Scotia, we had John Buchanan. Remember being introducing him at... actually, I didn't introduce him. Somebody else introduced him. I asked a question at a student assembly back in 1974 when I was in high school, junior high school, Anish East High School in Monastery, and he was there. But the son of a gun, you got to give it him. He knew how to win elections. But the debt load of Nova Scotia, he criticized the government of Gerald Regan, who was there from 70 to 78. Reckless with the people's money, supposedly. The debt of Nova Scotia in 1978, when the people took the power away from us in September 78, it's the first election I was old enough to vote in. I proudly voted for Honourable Bill, and I voted ever since that for Honourable Bill. He was a distinguished gentleman, and people of all political... Alan J. actually and Honourable Bill have a lot in common. A lot of Conservatives voted for Alan J. He was such a statesman, such a proud patriot of Cape Breton and the release to Nova Scotia. Later his ride was called Cape Breton Highlands Canso, so it was Inverness, Richmond counties, and the Cape Breton Island, beautiful Cape Breton Island, and the mainland, Guysborough and Antigonish counties. So eastern Nova Scotia and western Cape Breton Island. Great riding. And Honourable Bill, of course, at that time, the provincial riding was, in fact, the county and town put together. More of us in the county. So we county and the town put together. Us country mice and people that inhabit Antigonish. Anyhow, back to the thing. The debt of the province when people took the power away from us was $500 million, $500 million. That would have been a mortgage on the expansion at what was then known as the Queen Elizabeth, was then known as, Victoria General Hospital, the newfangled 4-lane road highway between Truro and Halifax. Any bills left over of building of high schools, Annex East High School I went to, and elementary schools being consolidated and so on in the province. That was the debt of Nova Scotia. Fast forward to 1991, when John Buchanan was called up to Ottawa by Brian Mulroney to shove the goods and services tax, made a senator, helped ram through, shoved the goods and services tax down our throat. 11 years later, 1978 to 1991, actually it's more than that, it'd be 13 years later, I guess, technically, 13 years later. Okay, he took in the interest on the debt of Nova Scotia was something like $800 million. The debt had ballooned up to something like $9 billion. That's unconscionable. So I remember speaking to a cabinet minister from Annapolis Valley, from Avonport, Annapolis Valley. And he was a cabinet minister under both Bob Stanfield and G.I. Smith. And I remember him standing up buying apples from him in his farm, and he said, progressive conservative, he said. He gestured with his hands. A contradiction in terms. Okay, contradiction in terms. Okay, whereas you can't be fat anorexic, and you can't be a skinny sumo wrestler. Okay, some words just don't go together. Short-winded and John Pettipas, they don't go together, etc. Anyhow, he said, Ed told me, progressive conservatives, a contradiction in terms. Contradiction in terms. And so there are many people in this province vote Conservative, provincially, PC, and I respect them. Many of them are good people. But boy, oh boy, man, oh man, in some instances, the Conservative progressive PCs of Nova Scotia have been very good in, feather bedding patronage with their voters, with their supporters, I should say, with their supporters. The Liberal Party, not as much, okay? John Savage certainly wasn't. That's a video for another day. We won't go there today. That's a video for another day. Now, interesting, go to New Brunswick. The Tories in New Brunswick are very upright and fine people. Something like the Liberal Party in Nova Scotia, generally. The Tories in New Brunswick generally are upright, fine people, and the Liberals. Not saying there's not upright and fine people in the Liberal Party of New Brunswick or the Tory Party, PC Party of Nova Scotia. But that said, the Liberal Party in New Brunswick has traditionally, in the last number of years, has been very, what's the word I can use here? I'm going to say SB. And it doesn't stand for whatever. They certainly feathered and that's good. Okay, but they're not in power now. They got a very good premier and one Blaine Higgs, and I'm certain when this coronavirus stuff is over, he's a minority government, he'll be re-elected handily. And this brings me on now to Premier McNeil. The previous Conservative leader that stood against him was one Jamie Bailey. And Jamie Bailey is no longer there. He left with a cloud over his head, I'm told, but he's no longer there. And nobody seems to know why he's not there. I know why he's not there. And actually, somebody in Pictou County made a very blunt comment. They call him so-and-so of Nova Scotia. Okay, and well, let your imagination go. But he's gone, so enough time spent in Jamie Bailey. Their present leader is Tim Houston. Now, he's a guy probably not without abilities, okay, but I just look at that caucus, I look at what he's done to gentlemen I voted in the last federal election. Federally, I voted for Mr. McLeod, okay, Alfie McLeod. I haven't met him, but I did business with his family over the years, not his immediate family, but his cousins. His late uncle and his cousins selling potatoes to them every fall. They were wonderful people. McLeod's a Grand River and down in Richmond County, almost in Cape Breton County, on East Coast Cape Breton Island. Fantastic people. Some of the finest people you ever want to meet. Okay, so I voted for Alfie. And we have a new Liberal member of Parliament here, Mike Calloway. He's actually, at personal level, very decent guy. He's the fire in his belly. Mike has the fire in his belly. Then how was anybody going to succeed Roger Cusner, the magnificent, wonderful Roger Cusner? But this guy does have fire in his belly and is very sincere, and wanting to do his best for everybody. And it's not an easy job being a member of Parliament, and being in Ottawa 30 weeks of the year and dealing with a far-flung constituency that covers a big area, half of Cape Breton Island and a good swap of mainland Nova Scotia. Anyway, I voted for Elfie. Elfie left the Conservative caucus, resigned in Nova Scotia, and ran federal as an editorial. I don't know editorial. Editorial I don't really know, so I can't comment. He may be a little bit rough around edges with Elfie. Elfie's a real gentleman. But he was both those gentlemen, rough around edges not, are fantastic constituency men. Eddie Oriel in Northside Victoria and Alfie McLeod and Cape Breton Sydney River riding. Any party be glad to have them. The Greens, and these guys wouldn't be Greens. The NDP, those fellas. That's a story for another day. The Liberals would have been glad to have them. And certainly the Conservatives should have been glad to have them. And I looked down at Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. They had a guy, Chris, I've never met the guy, but they tell me he's a very capable cat. When you have folks in the Liberal Party tell you that Chris Entremont is a very capable cat, So I'm told that if you're not right with him, you're not in there. So Steve McNeil doesn't operate like that. I'm certain he doesn't have favourites. In fact, I'm told he's a very fair man. Steve McNeil, our Premier, comes from a family of 17. Let's talk about Steve McNeil for a minute. Future Nova Scotia, but also Premier McNeil. I knew his mother when he was running for Liberal leadership to come in the store, and she's a mumber cat for Lord Waste. Tremendous amount of fine people in Lord Waste. All over Cape Breton and rural Nova Scotia, in small town Nova Scotia, you find fine people. But there are especially wonderful people down in Lord Waste. Her maiden name was Mumbercat, and she married a McNeil gentleman from down in Annapolis Royal. In fact, I know somebody through a company I was involved with that as a teenager, as a boy, worked at a grocery store, I think in Cornwallis or Annapolis Basin, somewhere there, and every Saturday morning used to deliver groceries to McNeil household. That'd be like Stephen's parents and the 17 children she had. So it was a big house, a big family. And I'm told in the house they had a battery of stoves. I think there was 3 stoves out in the summer kitchen out there, 3 stoves on one side, and I believe it was 4 refrigerators. That's right, 4 refrigerators on one side of her porch, and 3 stoves on the other side. And her husband, I never knew her husband, Steve's father. He was evidently a very fine gentleman too, but he died. Why did he die? I think he choked on a piece of meat or something, eating pork chop or something, and the lady was left with a large family, widowed, and 17 kids. In fact, Stephen is the 12th child of 17, and he was an appliance repairman. I know a corporate lawyer in Halifax that made a very arrogant comment one day, and I'm not going to name the name, but he said, well, Steve McNeil got the leadership, but if he doesn't, if he wins, I don't know if he'd know what to do with the power. They don't know what to do with the power. Because, well, Stephen didn't have an X ring on him, and he wasn't a lawyer. Well, whoop-de-doo! He got common sense, the very determined, smart, common sense guy. Tremendous horse sense and great intellectual sense. He can make a decision. Some people can't make decisions. He can make a decision. So anyway, Steve McNeil is he perfect? No, he's a mere mortal. I'm a mere mortal. President Trump's a mere mortal. Steve McNeil's a mere mortal. Bill Gillis and Ellen J and all their grandeur, Margaret Thatcher, fantastic states lady, Prime Minister of Britain, all mere mortals, okay? Mere mortals, okay? But by God, they all have one thing in common. Tremendous dedication. Honourable Bill, late Honourable Ellen J as well, and Margaret Thatcher, President Trump, all very devoted to what they're doing. And there's not a day that guy doesn't work hard on our behalf. Does he make mistakes? No doubt. I remember, in fact, I mentioned this to somebody today, I was speaking to him on the phone. General Eisenhower, the supreme commander of Allied troops in Europe, that was instrumental in defeating Hitler and the Nazis, and later President of the United States for two terms from 54 to 56 and 56 to 60. And he one time told an interviewer, said in a speech, there's not a teenage girl or boy in high school that can't make a decision better than I could as President of the United States. And he'd give one caveat. Listen to this. The caveat was, again, I repeat, there's not a teenage girl or boy in the high school in the United States that can't, in any high school, that can't make a better decision than I made in my 8 years as president with the benefit of hindsight. So nobody, no mere mortal's going to do everything right. This coronavirus come up. Then we had a mass shooting, murder, tragedy, horrific. And he keeps on ticking. Is he perfect? Of course not. But I'm going to go out of my way today to make a point. I always, when I make tweets on President Trump, I say, 4 more years, Trump 2020. Well, I'm going to say today, provincially, I would never say to Justin Trudeau, don't go there. I'll digress, video will go on too long. Okay? But I'll say of Stephen McNeil, the provincial president, Liberal Premier of Nova Scotia, 4 more years. Count him. 1, 2, 3. 4 more years. So we don't have a fixed mandate, but the people of Nova Scotia will be well served. And I don't say this to irritate all my PC friends, but we'll be well served in this province to stick with 4 more years of Premier McNeil. Few premiers get 3 terms. 3 terms. Angus L. MacDonald, he got 3 terms. And I would personally, my personal opinion, that people in Nova Scotia be well served to give kind consideration to Premier Steve McNeil for another term. Okay, until such times that there's a stronger PC caucus and a stronger PC leader in Nova Scotia. I'm going to repeat that. Until such times, there's one guy in that caucus, John Lord. He's wonderful. He's from the Valley. Great guy. I'd have no problem voting for John Lord. A really good guy, a true conservative. But did he get the nomination? Did he get the Liberal? Did he get the PC leadership a year and a half ago? No. Not even a year and a half ago. Less than that. Did he get the PC leadership? No. They chose somebody, in my opinion, is a red Tory. In my opinion, red Tory. This is certainly not a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. And I would have no problem supporting John Lord, but till there's more John Lords, his stature and character, and the PC, and I look at NDP. I'm not going to just pick on the PC party of Nova Scotia. And I can't use the word somebody else used. It was like a blinking, something was dropped on them. I'll use something more mild. The NDP of Nova Scotia, they remind me of a pissant hill when you're mowing the grass, the side of the grass, you decide to make your lawn a little bit bigger, and you run over the pissant hill with your push lawnmower, and all the pissants go everywhere else. That's, in my opinion, that's about what a provincial NDP is in this province right now. Anyway, we all love Nova Scotia. I didn't do this to give partisan jabs. I did this because we all, Cape Bretoners, wonderful Cape Bretoners, and wonderful mainland Nova Scotians, wonderful people. We love our province, we love the island, we love the peninsula of Nova Scotia. There are many good people in province that persistently vote for the PC party of Nova Scotia, and that's fine. They're getting out to vote, and we respect and admire them and salute them. But my personal opinion, my editorial here this afternoon, I'd say the people in Nova Scotia will be well served to consider kind consideration to actively support and give Premier Steve McNeil 4 more years. 4 more years. Are things perfect in Nova Scotia? Of course not. Could some things be better? Of course they can. But if we didn't have them, they'd be a lot worse. He's a strong leader, and he's a fair gentleman, and just because he doesn't have an X-ring on, or just because he's not a lawyer, doesn't mean he hasn't done a damn good job since October of 2013 when he was elected, and he's the only premier since Angus L. MacDonald, Liberal premier, that's ever won 2 terms back-to-back. So for the Liberals out there, I'd say, I'm going to wrap this up, stick with Steve! Stick with Steve. And with that, I got to go. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. I want to thank everybody that gets out there and votes in election. And if you're so kind as to press the subscribe button, I've gone a lot longer than I normally do. Press the subscribe button and spread the word about this video. If you don't agree with me, spread the word anyway. Promote a discussion. Promote a discussion. Maybe you feel that another party leader is the best things in sliced bread, which, by the way, they started making in 1928. I noticed it in this day in history in Halifax Turtle a few days ago. 92 years ago since sliced bread came. They have an expression, something's pretty good. It's the best idea since sliced bread. Think another leader? Get out and support your leader. But discuss the video. I've done this to promote a discussion, because at some point we will have election in this province and we'll have to make a decision. That NDP guy, that guy in Pictou that right now that calls himself a PC leader, and or Premium McNeil. So stick with Steve is my mantra. With that, please be so kind as to spread this information on this. Press the subscribe button, everyone, on YouTube. It helps a great deal. Okay, build up our viewership. I think we're up over 400 subscribers now. And there's not one of you that's not appreciated. And there's not one of you loyal commenters that's not appreciated. I appreciate all comments from all quarters on my YouTube station. All of you, and several of you have been very loyal, from Australia, United States, other parts of Nova Scotia, and other parts of the country, and you're appreciated greatly. I want you to know that. And so promote this, mention it on social media, Facebook, Twitter, telephone, YouTube, whatever. I got to go. Thank you very much for your patience, folks. And until next time, this is John Pettipas wishing all you wonderful folks here in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton. I wish you all the best. Till next time, all the best, and God bless. Thank you very much for tuning in. Bye for now.